Do you remember Robert Rodriguez? Of course you do. At one time, he was one of my favorite directors. And I have to admit that even though he was one of my favorite directors at one time, was From Dusk Till Dawn and Desperado and The Faculty and his half of Grindhouse with my favorite director, Quentin Tarantino, I had never actually sit down and watched El Mariachi before, which is kind of a sin, I guess, at this point, if you are in to Robert Rodriguez movies like I was. But the thing I will say about this is I had seen the very end of it on like IFC Midnight or whatever it was called years ago, the IFC channel that people used to get. They used to show like a grindhouse thing. And I seen the very end of it. And then, as you can see here, I picked up this copy of this movie, which seems to have a little trouble coming in focus for some reason or another. Oh, there we go. At a flea market years ago. Never watched, but finally got down and decided it's time to watch it. And I know people are like, well, why don't you just go pick up the Arrow trilogy, the Mexican trilogy? Well, that's because this cost me $2 and that would cost me 70. So let's just work with me on this. Spoiler alert, not a spoiler alert, but be warned, if you watch this, it is 100% in subtitles. I think Paramount actually, paid for a dub version, but it never has seen a lot of days as far as I'm concerned. But nonetheless, before this man turned into Antonio Banderas in Desperado, he was played by somebody else. And this is a do-it-yourself. Robert Rodriguez was basically the entire crew. I think he wrote a book about it. It's pretty famous at this point. And he ran around Mexico making a movie. Where basically we have our El Mariachi here, who is a mariachi. He runs around with his guitar case, and he's just trying to find work. Meanwhile, while this is going on, there is a killer who runs around dressed in black, carrying around a guitar case, who has weapons in his guitar case, who gets double crossed by a gringo mob boss who's running around in Mexico. And since this was the day before cell phones and social media and all that good stuff, when he sends his henchmen to get this guy, he gets confused for this guy. So our El Mariachi is forced to run for his life, kill people, take refuge in a bar with a woman who also has ties with the gringo guy. And that is basically the plot in a nutshell, but it's very action packed. It's so much fun actually to watch that I was surprised how much fun it was. Even now, it's a whole lot of fun. So I can see why everybody really started praising Robert Rodriguez. Now, this came out in like 92, the same time, I think, as Reservoir Dogs from Quentin Tarantino. So their careers kind of ran parallel. Although the dialogue obviously is not as sharp as Tarantino's dialogue, and the movie isn't shot, in my opinion, as good as Tarantino movies. I don't know why I'm comparing these people, but work with me here. But Robert Rodriguez definitely has his own style, and it's on display here. And he's got his own little tone, his little comedic tone and stuff. And he does a lot of cool action stuff. And I'm not necessarily the biggest action movie guy. Like, I go through waves where it's like, yeah, I love Rambo and I love like Deadbeat at Dawn. Like, that's my point A to point Z of what I love. And I like some action stuff in between. And I also like Desperado, which I've seen before this. I think a lot of people did that. And I enjoyed this. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5. This old DVD still holds up pretty well. It says it's a special edition. Has a turtle on it. It has El Mariachi on the side. And has your special features of the new transfer from the original negatives. It's DVD, so obviously that ain't going to matter too much. Director commentary. It is in English, by the way. Robert Rodriguez's short film, 10-minute film school, which on everything, a sneak peek of Once Upon a Time in Mexico. So that should tell you about the time period that this thing was released. Now, another thing, why don't I go buy the $70 4K Arrow one? Well, this was $2. And you can't argue that DVDs are still pretty cool for, cheap when you get them, which I got this, like I said, forever ago. But let me tell you how weird I am. In the process of waiting to watch this, I went to Walmart and I picked up the $5 El Mariachi, Desperado, and Once Upon a Time in Mexico trilogy set, which is pretty well the same thing as the solo releases, if you haven't seen that. I did not have Desperado. I do have Once Upon a Time in Mexico and obviously El Mariachi. But this is one of them weird ones where they just stack everything on top of each other. There's your Once Upon a Time in Mexico, the same as the solo release I've got. Here is Desperado, which I probably should watch. I haven't watched that since I was a kid. And, of course, the El Mariachi, which is the exact same disc. That was here. So if you don't want to go and get the $70 Arrow set, you can pick probably this up pretty cheap. Or you can go to Walmart and if you still got a bargain bin, or even if you ain't still got a bargain bin, you may find a $5 section where you can pick this up. So yeah, El Mariachi, a lot of fun if you haven't seen it. I may go and watch some more Robert Rodriguez stuff. I kind of get like in these things where I watch a lot of people's stuff and then I never finish it, but maybe I'll finish this trilogy.